Well, welcome everybody on this chilly afternoon. Oh, the sun is popping out. Wow, that's interesting when it's really low and it's creeping through the trees. I'm going to be doing a little bit of that today. So it just happened behind me, actually, out my window. I see the light hitting like the tops of the branches. So I wanted to pick that today. And I have an hour to do it in. So I'm not going to waste any more time talking about it. I'm just going to do it. Um, so that's my information right here. And I'll put that back up later for you guys. This is the scene that I'm going to be doing, which I sketched out already. It is a scene from last year, the one snowfall we had in December. I went around and took pictures, and I was really glad I did because we didn't have any other snow. So that's what I'm doing today. And I'm going to be working. It's kind of a lot to get done in a short time, but I love doing this. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add a nice wash to this background. And I'm going to be using colors that do give us a sense of that winter kind of feeling that we get. And if you're down in Northport, you know they have the beautiful white gazebo down there that I'm going to depict that as well. And I got some people in here, and I'm going to start with a color that I love, which is Quin Gold and Quin Gold Deep. And that's going to give us that feeling of a little bit of color kind of coming through the trees on the horizon, which is, oh my God, I don't know if you guys could look out your windows, but that's exactly what's going on outside my window right now. So I'm very happy to be depicting exactly what I see going on. And now I'm adding a color, which is really a fabulous color, my Moon Glow and my, sorry, sometimes I can't paint and talk at the same time. It's a color, the Moon Glow breaks into beautiful violets, and my Shadow Violet, if you let it, it breaks into pinks and blues. So they're two perfect colors to sort of give that feeling of that winter sort of day going on, that gray sky. But because it breaks into other colors, it really does have a super duper presence to it. And that sort of, and it happens, that effect will happen when you let it move in the paint itself. If you're not pushing it around, it actually breaks into these beautiful colors. And in fact, I got to zoom in just to show you guys. I don't know if you could see it, but right here, it's granulating, which is one of the things that I love about watercolor, is that granulation, and it is breaking into blues and pinks. That is a function of these beautiful, beautiful colors that I use. And so I wanted to point that out to you, because a big part of what I do is letting it be a watercolor and letting it move and granulate all on its own. And you could see over here, I'm doing a little bit of what I call reverse definition. And what that means is that I'm sort of giving a feeling of the weight of the snow on the branches. There's a big tree over there. It gives you that feeling of the snow being kind of weighting them down a little bit. This is my horizon line right there. It's a little bit past halfway. You really don't want your horizon line being smack in the middle. And I have three little people in here too. So I want to get a little bit of some figures. I have snow, I have trees, I have a lot going on. So now I did pick up some other colors that I've been playing around with. And this one is called Shadow Green. So I'm putting that in. Again, I'm going to go a little closer just so that you can see what's happening. As soon as I put it into my landscape, it immediately gives you that feeling of trees but they're in the distance. So what I'll do is I'll drop this in now so that it moves around nicely with the water. And what it does is it throws it into what I call a soft focus. So what that means is, my photograph isn't really showing this soft focus. Our cameras are so amazing these days, but I know that you can, through depth of field, sort of throw things out of focus a little bit when um, you change certain settings on your um, your camera. I think there's something called portrait mode or something, and portrait mode might do that. And you could see how nice and soft they got. I'll back out. I'll just go back and forth between being sharp and up close, and then kind of coming out and seeing the whole thing as it's coming out. So there's three, I guess if I was Bob Ross, I would say there are three happy trees, right? Is that what he used to say? I don't have his hairstyle, so there you go. And I do want a little bit of that green going on in between the behind our gazebo. So I'm, again, through reverse definition, I'm defining the poles and the gazebo, the white gazebo that's there, just by having that little reverse definition there. So yeah, and there's a little bit of green in front of it. The shadow green is complementing everything really nicely, but I'm also going to add a little bit, there's like some shrubs in front and whatnot, and some trees behind it. So and I like that sun sort of hitting that area there. And then I'm going to just give this area where these trees are a little bit more oomph. And because it's wet, this is what I would call wet into wet. And it's a very soft approach to doing a landscape or any painting. And as long as it's wet, it's going to move. That's what I love about it. And it's one of the things that I just love about watercolors is that it gives you these unexpected results without having to really have it be overly painted. So it just sort of gives it a beautiful, nice, soft effect, and very much throws everything into soft focus. And I always say in my classes, and those students that are with me know this, I'll say, if you stopped right now, you'd sort of know what it is, and so I look for that kind of feedback and answer sometimes, because I don't want to overpaint something that doesn't need to be overpainted. And we could always add details at the end. So that's just one of my sort of mottos, is that I'll add my details at the end. I have a brush that I call my Sexy Scumble brush. This is a brush that I took. It was a very expensive sable brush at one point, and it sort of has been failing me of late. It just didn't last, but I cut it. And now I'm going to go in and do some of these branches over here, just to give that feeling that there's snow on them. They're weighted down, they're heavy, and it gives me a very unexpected, and you don't know what's really going to happen kind of mark. And I like that it's such a creative little brush with the point and the scumbling that I could do and whatnot. And this again is this new color that I found that I really have been enjoying working with, and that is shadow green. This is a Daniel Smith color. Daniel Smith, it might be Holbein. I can't remember actually now. I'd have to look and see. But I could get side marks. I could get thirsty, dry brush marks. I could be on the tip and get very fine marks. I really could go in and do a whole lot of fun with these paints. I did squeeze a little bit of fresh paint, which I normally don't do. It's a little bit on the intense side, but you get the feeling of what I want to do right there. And I do want to, so I'm using a few different brushes. I like having my brushes sort of ready to go at any point in time, because using the right brush is really, really critical and very important in watercolor. I guess in any medium. I don't really know other mediums. I'm sort of a watercolor kind of gal. Another really nice effect is when you use a spray bottle. And I'm looking for my dot sprayer. Okay, here it is. A dot sprayer is a spray bottle that gives you, once you pump it up in your water bowl, it spurts out in kind of unusual ways. And so the timing on this, I'm going to go a little closer so that you could see this. Let me back out of this a little bit. You could see that depending on where the paint is in terms of drying, it gives it these really pretty dots, and it looks like it's snow. Yeah, I love that. Okay, I want to build this horizon a little bit more, a little bit darker. I'm going to wait on the trees. I'm going to go in and do a little bit more on the trees. Now's not the time because it's so wet. So I'm going to wait on that. But I do have these people here. There's a little family, and I do want to get them in. So that'll be fun too. Definitely want to put them in. And that feeling of snow. So to get that feeling of snow, I really like to use a soft blue color. I have a few. The one that I'm going to use today is a Holbein blue, and it just sort of gives me a nice softness to the snow. I know snow isn't blue, but somehow, because it's a cool color, it does sort of read really well as a snow might. And this is just sort of the path that they walked along, and they created this little this little area that they're standing in. I don't know what they're doing. They might be making a snowman or something. I'm not sure. Feathering that out a little bit. There's nice long shadows that happen. I did drop a little moon glow in there with it because those violets really kind of talk to me. And it's very much color temperature. I think of color temperature when I'm painting cool scenes like this. I do have that sun kind of poking through, and it really is granulating in a beautiful way. And I sort of hit the dot sprayer at a good time. It's really breaking apart, and you kind of need to time it, because if you add it too soon, it just washes things away, and if you hit it too late, it won't do anything. So it's just one of those little things that, you know, watercolor is sort of a timing thing. I'm just going to get these marks, these sort of marks of this path that they took, and it should get a little bigger as it comes towards me. And I could do that by, I'm looking at the photo. They absolutely did walk this way. So I'm sort of following something. And by carrying it down to the bottom here, what I can do is I sort of can bring our eye into the painting, or come out of the painting and then go back into it. So I'm thinking compositionally, as well as, you know, this idea that telling a story. So the story, I like the story. The story is this family came down to the park with their child, and they are visiting and playing in the snow. I'm just giving a few water snow marks to the front, which you would definitely see. And we'll see if we need more than that, but that's the idea. I want to build my horizon line a little bit more. Now, when you build a horizon line, yes, I know the horizon goes straight across and all of that, you know, which is great, but you want to keep it around your center of interest, which is right here, obviously, right where these people are. So I do want to be sure that I add a good amount of deep dark there, and maybe a little bit more, build that a little bit more like that. Yeah. I have a nice fence over here that I want to add. So I want to do that. And I do want to lift this one area right here. That's the peak of the, I could go back in and add some white there. I'll show you how I would fix that little corner there. So let's go in and get, I want to do the people. I'll show you how I do the people. I'll zoom in on that, but I'm going to do some of the fence right now. And it's just to show you that you really can have a lot of fun with these watercolors, and it doesn't have to be this major, huge commitment that happens, you know, that you have to sit down and spend hours on a painting. I am a speed painter. I do know that, but there's nothing here that is really, especially when you work wet into wet. When you work wet into wet, a lot of wonderful things happen. You get a whole lot of the basic information done very quickly, and then you could go ahead and add details on top of it. I just did a little process there that I call melting. I just melted that mark right into the snow. This is the fence that's there, that's around the green evergreen. Again, I'm able to really depict this. I do like to show you guys just how much fun painting this way really is. I just love it so much. I'm going to melt this into the snow right on the bottom there. And it also creates maybe a little bit of a shadow as well. So that means I'm just going to add a touch of blue to it. Because if all my snow is reading sort of the same way, I want to make sure that the colors are sort of consistent.
Jan, we have a couple questions.
Go right ahead. Yep, perfect.
Someone wants to know what kind of paper you're using, and could you please show the original photo again?
Yep, I sure will. So the paper that my favorite paper to use, and that's what I'm using, is Arches 300 hot press. So the common one is, generally speaking, going to be the 140 cold press. But I love using a lot of water. And so when I use that much water, what I like to do is have a heavier paper, and that gives me a lot of, you'll notice my paper is not buckling or anything. So it's really a great, great way to get a very watery feel. One of the things that happens, of course, with watercolors is that the paper buckles a lot. Not my 140, doesn't happen. So yeah. And as far as wanting to see the photo again, it's right there. I'll try to keep it there as long as I can, because I'm just sort of working. I'll work around it a little bit. So the greenery is sort of poking through. So paints are from underneath that. So my paints are sort of poking through, and I would say this is, you know, a loose interpretation of the photo, but you know, I do say this a lot to my students, that if you have the photo, you don't need another detailed representation of it. You have the photo, so why not have some fun and interpret it and have some real good time with it. Make it your own. I have something special I want to do over there, but I want to get to the people. I'm waiting for this to dry. Watercolors is timing. Okay, so I don't want to touch this because I do want to go in and add some tree trunks and whatnot. So now is a perfect time for me to work on my little people. So my little people, I'm going to put this back up there just so that I have access to everything easily in front of me. My little people, I'm going to take a small brush. Now, when you're working with people, it's kind of interesting because there's a tendency to start with a big round head. I'm going to say don't start with a big round head because they look, the proportions are too off. The head is often too big and they look like, oh, I don't know, aliens or something. They just don't look properly proportionate. So the head is almost a rectangular shape. And Now I'm going, let me zoom in on this for you guys. I'm going into these people so this, you could see this a little closer up, okay? And all I'm doing is sort of getting the gesture going. That's really all I have to do because that will tell the story. Probably, I'm using my violet now. So I probably will go in and add what I would say the complement. And I do that a lot in class. The complements work well to get together because what they do is they dull each other out. So in terms of this violet color that I'm using here, I can add some of my yellow that's up here on top, and I could bridge the palette, which means that I can then go ahead and have a little bit more color in my painting and tone each other down at the same time. So that's a little bit of my yellow. It's a little counterintuitive, I know, but it works really, really well. And you sort of get the gesture of what that guy is doing. Where his coat is, where his arms are, all of that. I'm going to do the little kid next. Now, in the case of a child, the head is a little rounder and a little larger in proportion. But you'll notice maybe they have a little hat on. And I think I might add a little bit of red to her jacket just to give it a little bit more color and suggest that she's sort of wearing a red little jacket and outfit. Maybe I'll add a little red into him too. Again, those things kind of help us when we are painting. So, you know, and one of the better explanations that I can tell you from experience is I saw somebody who was painting a red house, a blue house, a yellow house, and a green house. And they painted a red house, a blue house, a green house, and a yellow house. And it was, you know, accurate, but it wasn't fun. Does that make sense? There was there should be some color that brings them all together. And so having a little bit of blue in your red and a little red in your yellow and a little yellow in your green, even though it might not be in the photograph, transcends it from being a photo into being painterly. And so I sort of look for opportunities to do that. So anything that I could do that helps bring something around a painting, make it look fun and interesting and give it a little bit more of a interest beyond the photo. I want to interpret the photo. I don't want to be a slave to it. So that's just my feeling. Some people really, really enjoy that process of interpreting a photograph with great deal of precision. I can. It doesn't interest me to do that. And so therefore, I don't do that. Not interested. But the idea of using complementary colors and the use of the water coming into it. Look at what happened with those droplets that I added here. It just pushed the paint away and gave me such an explosion of color that that if I tried to do that, it would not have happened. It's by allowing something to happen in watercolors that the magic really does appear. Let me back out, show you where I'm at. There you go. This is now dry enough. I'm going to grab my rigger, one of my favorite brushes, and I'm going to take some more color on it. Now I'm going to be doing this with less water and more color on my brush. And I'm going to add these tree trunks here.
And one of the things that we talk about in class is that idea of making, even if you see all of these trees sort of lined up, break it up. Do not paint it so that they all look like they're the same distance, same shape, same width, same everything. You want to really explore that. There's a whole lot of more interest if you don't do that. So my paintings are interpretations of my photographs. And I could, I could go in and do a lot of fine work, in the branches and in the trees. And I'm using a rigger right now, which is a lot of fun. This brush is really indeed a whole lot of fun, because I could get these really unusual shapes and let them sort of, the brush do the work. I like letting the paints do the work. I like letting the brush do the work. I like those ideas of using your tools in a way that help you to be successful with a painting and not feel that you have to, over paint it, especially when you only have an hour to do it. And look how much we did in half an hour, right? Just so much fun. Another good use for the dot sprayer, I'm going to add some marks on this side because there's sort of a tree that's here. And those marks are not, as I would feel, like great marks. Are okay. But when I hit it with my dot sprayer, it breaks it apart and gives me little deposits of water. And now when I do it, the paint is actually finding those drops of water and doing very unusual things that you wouldn't do with your brush. So that little bit of coming, again, letting the dot sprayer do the work, letting these different tools that you have at your disposal do some of this work for you. Another thing I like to do is what I call little Morse code. And that means not everything has to connect for it to work for you. I did say that tip right there, I lost that white. So I'm just going to go in and I'm going to grab a little white paint. I don't mind using white. I don't use it a lot, but I'd rather use white paint than masking. There's sometimes I use masking, but not a whole lot. Anybody have any questions? Also, the other nice part about using watercolor paper, this paper does not have a lot of tooth to it. A 300-pound, a 140 cold press will definitely have a lot more tooth to it. So I'm not getting a real toothy effect, but if you drag your brush, what I call thirsty brush, across, you will get some of the texture that's on the paper, that exists on the paper, simply because it's watercolor paper, and you will get certain effects that way. And now, the final touches, I could really go in and I could just really have a lot of fun and with, details of branches, trees. I'm happy with the people. I think they came out really good. I also, let me just talk about the way I paint. I do not pre-mix in my palette very much. I really prefer to mix on the paper and let the paper and the paints intermingle. And what happens is that even if you use a red and a green or whatever, what will happen is that you will still see both of those colors, but it will read as a little bit of both of the colors along with the brown that it created, the grayish brown. So I'm hitting some of the trees with a little bit of like maybe that light hitting them coming through. Want to go in and use that shadow green here and give that a little bit more definition right in here. So you could see I could go back in on top of my washes and really have some nice, deep, dark evergreen marks with them. That really speaks so beautifully. It really, but now I want to continue it in a couple of other places. Now that I did that, and it feels very successful. So the other thing that we talk about in class, we talk about bridging the palette, which by putting the gold in and gold in other places, that bridges the palette, putting the blue, all of these colors, the green in different places, maybe in unexpected places, it helps make it look very painterly and really inviting. And the other thing that we do in class, we use a lot of complementary colors. And I love doing that. Green and red is a complement. Violet and yellow, as I talked about before, is a complement, and blue and orange. Oh, and I have a painting that I want to show you that is a very good example of how blue and orange or complements work. I'm just going to put this here. It was a photograph I took in Vermont on a workshop that I gave, but look at how beautiful the blue and the orange sit next to each other. So that's just an example of how two colors sitting next to each other are so complementary and really do work so well together. And yet when they touch on your paper, they tone each other down. And so there's a really nice use of that. Oh, I forgot to play Howie. Hold on. Howie Emerson, new CD. Sorry. He's going to finger pick for us. Just hot off the press. I just got it last night. Oops, a little loud. Sorry. Meant to play that. Forgive me. HowardEmerson.com. He gave me permission to play this during my classes, which is so sweet. Watercolor is simply a balance of paint and water. It's sort of magical what could happen when you let it. If anything gets too fussy, I just hit it with a little dot spray, and it will, now that'll push that color aside. I'll go in and show that a little closer. So I'm over here, and when I hit it with my dot sprayer, it just takes the color and moves it a little bit aside. I want to hit a little bit of that gold color in a couple of other areas because I think it'll work really, really well. This is a color I called Quinn Gold. I'm not really worried about when I paint, my brushes are sort of on the, you know, I prefer actually synthetics these days, but I do love good paints. Just adding a little bit of that glow to some of the snow area. So the final thing that I'm thinking about is contrast, because what we say in class is color gets the credit, contrast does the work. So your painting will be weak unless you think of adding contrast to it. Toothbrush is always really handy, preferably one that is an old one, nice and soft. And what I want this feeling of maybe this tree sort of, I don't know, having little areas that are not enough color. Let me get some more color on my toothbrush. Doing this is a balance of, just like watercolor, a balance of paint and how wet, how much water you have. Oh, that looks fun. I like that. I have to show that to you close up. It's really fun. Let me zoom out a little bit. So I just added these nice, it just feels fun and loose and I don't know, can't explain it. I love drips, I love blossoms, I love splatter. Those are things that I really explore when I'm doing a watercolor. It's a little Charlie Brown tree. I love going back in and adding details later to my paintings, seeing what it needs, not finishing a particular area overly fast. I love having the looseness first, and then I could make decisions about what it might need after that. So that's what I did here. And because watercolor is a timing thing, I really needed to let this dry before I decided what it might need. And I could make that determination at any point. Oh, those are fun. I like those. I feel like doing more of those. But too much of any good one thing is, is maybe not the best way to go. I'll add a little bit more green back here just to suggest maybe there's more evergreens. There's a color that I like to use. It's not white, it's called Jaune Brilliant. I've learned how to say that. It's a warmish white. It's very opaque. And it does go onto paper really nicely. Now, if I zoom in on these people, let me zoom in. Oh, I was zoomed in, sorry. If I zoom in a little bit more, if for any reason I would to have lost those little whites that are around them, I could always go back and add that with this beautiful, warm, glowing. So like if I wanted to hit a little bit more of white on his shoulder, top of his head, you could go in and add that in really easily.
Jan, we have another question.
Sure.
What kind of rigger brush are you using? And can you please repeat the name of the color? The French.
Sure. Oh, Jaune, J-U-A-N-E, Jaune Brilliant, number 1. And it's a very, very pale yellow white. I might have a tube right here. If I do, I'll point it out to you guys and show you what the tube looks like. Here it is. So where am I? Here. Oh, that's very close. There it is right there. Woo, hello. Jaune Brilliant, number 1. It's a beautiful, warm yellow by Holbein. So yeah, I'm sorry, there was something else I had to repeat.
The type of rigger brush?
Oh, okay. I'm a big fan of synthetic brushes. This is a synthetic brush. Let me back out here for a second. This is my silver black velvet number 20. I get this on Cheap Joe's. I also got this rigger. It's a silver black velvet rigger. This is a 20, this is a 1. They're both my favorite brushes. They are synthetics. The synthetics nowadays are amazing. They are so amazing in terms of what they're able to do that there's really no reason to use sable. And in fact, sable is something that I now take. I'll point out like a sable brush that I have here. It's just, you could see it. It's just a hot mess. I will take this and I will cut this. And on my YouTube videos, I have how to take a sable brush that looks like this, also known as my hair in the morning, and I will make it into what we call a sexy scumble brush. And so I actually have a demo of how to do that on my website, and it's a lot of fun. You just need a nice sharp scissor to do that. And, you know, I could futz around with more of this, but I don't really think I kind of need to or want to, because I achieved what I wanted to with it. Maybe a little few more details in here. This is sort of underneath the gazebo.
I think it looks great as it is, Jan.
Well,
And
thank you.
in a few minutes, I will unmute people if they want to ask you questions
Sure.
directly.
You
But
could do
prior
that
to
now
that,
if you
I
want.
wanted
That's fine. It's up to
Okay,
you.
Prior to that, I wanted to do a little promo for our art gallery.
Oh, sure. Go. Oh, you should.
Remember,
Yes, of course.
Jan's a member of the Firefly Artists in Northport. And for the months of December and January, we have a collection of all the artists who participate in that gallery now on display at the Harborfield's Library Gallery. The show just went up yesterday and it's beautiful. So
It must look great. I can't wait to see it.
I think you'd really love to stop by and see it.
So thank you for the plug, because yeah, Firefly Gallery is a gallery in Northport that has amazing, amazing artists in it. I am proud and thrilled to be there as a participant. By the way, I'm taking my toothbrush and I'm going to hit it with some white. And we'll see where it lands up. It's all over my desk, which is typical. So I'm sort of in this is my palette, guys. It's really messy, okay? So I'm just sort of going in here and getting a little white, a little Jaune Brilliant, and I'm splattering some nice white on to the paper and everything else. And you could see also I splattered a little bit of blue here, which is fun also. And I really don't feel like I want to do anything more with it. So let me put the photo next to it. And you could see how I just took this and completely made it my own. This is just a suggestion. This was what I wanted to achieve. I wanted to feel that sun popping through. I wanted to feel the loose out of focus in the background. I wanted to get that gray kind of sky going on. You know, these were the things that I had wanted to achieve, the 3 people. And that little trail that they kind of followed to get there. And that was my goal. And I feel like I achieved it in under an hour, 45 minutes. You don't need
Thank you, Jan. That was great.
Oh,
Everyone
so
can unmute themselves if they want to ask Jan a question directly.
No.
I guess you've done such a good job. Nobody has any questions.
Will you be giving a course this winter?
Yes, I was just going to tell you
Great.
that I will be doing landscapes like this in a workshop. My workshops are run for 4 weeks, and yes, I do plan on doing winter scenes. I have a whole ton of, I'll just put this up here. I do have a whole ton of winter scenes that I'm interested in doing. And honestly, to do these, I did this with about 4 or 5 colors. You don't need a whole lot of colors, which is really fun. But the idea of letting the water move the paints in a way that you're not pushing it around with your paintbrush is a big part of what I do, and that is letting it be a watercolor. So if we looked kind of closely at what happened with this, I'll just go in a little closer here. Where am I? Here, you could really see all these beautiful colors that happened as a result of letting it just go and be. I really love that exploration. Otherwise, I find that what happens is it becomes almost like you can't tell that it's a watercolor, that it looks like it could be an acrylic. And I've tried acrylics, they are not for me at all. But the idea that these paints and this process, there is definitely a way in which you let the watercolor paint itself. You're letting it paint itself, which I think is just such an amazing thing to observe and have that happen in front of you, because it will give you unexpected results, and those unexpected results are spectacular. It's like dropping the water into these splattered areas and understanding how to bridge the palette and how to add contrast to a painting. All of those things are pieces of what I just love to explore. So yeah, I will be offering that. All you have to do is sign up. Barbara, I see you drinking your wine there. Very good. Chin chin. I will be running workshops. All you have to do to find out about a workshop is go to my website, janguarinofineart.com. I have a newsletter area there, and you could sign up for the newsletters. You will find out about every class going on. Find me on Facebook, look at my YouTubes on videos. More of those are going up all the time. Find me on Facebook. Yeah, there's a whole lot of shaking going on.
Hello? Yes, I just have a question. If you are using the 140 paper, do you recommend taping it or tacking it down to a board or something?
I don't work that way because I tilt my paper and I let it run. So I use 140 for different reasons. When I'm not using this much water, I know ahead of time this is going to be a very wet into wet process. I will use my 300. Now I do have these, if my painting is smaller, I'm trying to see one, like for instance, these are all, I'm just looking around to see what I have here. When I'm using maybe a smaller, when I'm doing something smaller, these were some portraits we did in the portrait workshop. These are done on 140 because I know that I'm not going to be using as much water to do these because they're not, they're not landscapes or whatever. So when I work a little smaller, or like today with Helen, we did, where is it? Here's a couple of cardinals we did. Oh, here's my attempt at calligraphy. But this is about an 8x12 sheet of paper. It's not as much water, but this is still pretty bumpy. And I think I would have gotten, it would not have the bumps if I had done it on the 300. So, I'm not a big component of taping down or stapling down and wetting it or anything like that. dive right in. And I love the 300 hot press, Arches hot press. It's a beautiful sheet of paper. It has some tooth to it, not as much. So it makes it very good for doing a lot of different types of architectural things. When you want to have a whole lot of detail on it, you could access that. So I sort of monitor what I'm painting and why I'm painting it, and how I'm going to paint it with what paper I'm going to use.
Thank you, Jan. It was magical. I love
Oh,
watching.
thank you.
Thank you so
Hey,
much.
Ellen.
We appreciate it.
Hey, good to see
Oh, hi.
you. I love watching you work. It's just your interpretation, how you see it, and then how you create it. It was just wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. You know, I love it. You know, I love showing you guys how to do it. You know that I love when you get results. I will share this with you that when you come into a class, there's, I do record it, so you do have it to try it again on your own. However, we do have a part of the class that is critique. And so I do like to see what you did and then offer you suggestions. I would do that in a class, but since this is our next best thing to a class, I have each person hold up their painting and I can see it and see if it needs a little bit of tweaking or guidance. So, you know, you'll get that in a class. Absolutely, step by step.
Yeah, thank you again.
You're welcome. So good to see you.
Good to see you
so
too.
much.
Yeah.
Take
Thank
care.
you, Jan, and thank
Thank
you
you.
everyone for joining us today.
Library, thank you
Thank
guys
you.
for doing this. You
Bye.
guys are
Yeah.
awesome.
It is awesome. It's wonderful. Thank
The
you.
libraries are our, you know, link to, you know, these kinds of worlds and exposing us to such beautiful things. And so I thank our local library so much for putting these together. We do have something coming up, I think, in January, right, Lisa?
Yeah.
It's
Susan?
January, but it's with a couple different libraries, so it might be limited to those particular libraries.
Okay, yeah, there are some library classes coming up, and I run my own classes, and there's a whole lot of shaking going on. So, yeah, so thank you all for coming on.
Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, I hope you had
Thank
fun.
you.
I know I sure did.
All
Thank
right,
you.
everybody. Thank you so much. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Hey, that's
Enjoy
great.
your wine, Barbara. See you soon.